Welcome to the 17th installment of Askaprojectmanager, where you get to hear the behind the scenes of project management. It's Veronica, and we're still talking about planning, the planning process. There are 5 processes. Remember, I mentioned that to you. There's the initiation, the planning, the execution, monitoring and controlling, and lastly, closing. But there's so many pieces that are tied to the planning process that I'm going to talk about this for several days. Hopefully you won't get bored with it because we're talking about the best piece, the most important piece, planning. So today we get to talk about what did I say yesterday? Have you been watching? We're going to talk about the work breakdown structure, y'all. Work breakdown structure, the most important structure. Work breakdown structure. That is the WBS. Important, take note. This will be your hub, the hub of your project. This is where you get to outline all of the tasks that need to take place and what's linked to those tasks. It'll also be your foundation to determine how long your project should take to complete and the costs that are tied to it. From building your work breakdown structure, you'll be able to determine what your critical path is because you get to put that into a handy-dandy presentation that you can use to figure out your forward pass, backward pass, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to bore you with that right now. We're going to talk about work breakdown structure. Get your foundation together. So, what the heck is a work breakdown structure? Your work breakdown structure is your outlining, usually in something that looks like an org chart. So you might have one box up top, then from that box you have maybe 2 or 3 high level boxes that are linked underneath it. And then underneath that you might have more boxes that are tied to each task. Sure, that might have sounded confusing, and I'll see if I can think of a better way to share it with you. But until that time, envision an org chart that you might see in your PowerPoint presentation or a regular org chart that your admins might pass out that outlines all the participants of your department. So you can use that, and that will be what you use to outline what tasks need to be completed. So you're meeting with your project team, you're meeting with your stakeholders, you're meeting with your major high-level subject matter experts, and you've asked them, what's it going to take for us to get to our end result? What are the tasks that are tied to this big project? Because we need to break those out and find out all of the needs that we have tied to that project. You're going to use your work breakdown structure to do that. You may or may not want to use that word with your project team, but any chance that you get to teach somebody something, then that's what you should do. So use the lingo. So they've told you it'll take us 10 different high-level tasks to get all of this taken care of. So one major task could be your user acceptance testing, all right? Big task there. Then it could also be your acquisition of human resources. Big task there. Then it could be acquisition of your computer system. I'm so making up this project, so if you're writing it down, might as well stop. Because I want you to know that your high-level tasks are what you'll put in the top row of your org chart, all right? Now, you have your top row created. What you'll do now is speak to, first of all, who's in charge of all of that, okay? So you have UAT, or your user acceptance testing. Is there one person that's in charge of all of the tasks that will be tied to user acceptance testing? Make sure that they're involved and make sure that they know that you've assigned them as the owner. Big deal. So then you ask them, all right, we have to do user acceptance testing. What are all the tasks that need to be completed underneath that? So do you need to have user IDs? Do you need to have test IDs? Do you need to have loans? Do you need to have test loans? Do you need to have access to a particular region in your application, that this is where all the testing type things take place. You have to outline all those subtasks, okay? And you do that for each high level task that you've outlined, that you've placed in your work breakdown structure. Now, the lowest level of your work breakdown structure, that's your work package, all right? Figured I'd provide you with another term there. So that's your work package. And you'll want to make sure that you outline all of these items and get your stakeholder approval, your stakeholder buy-in, that to the best of their knowledge and the best of their ability, they have outlined all of the tasks that are needed. Now, your work breakdown structure is what we like to call a living document. Not a living and breathing, don't get all freaked out on me, but it's a living document, and it's a document that as your progress takes place with your project, you'll want to update it as new items get pulled in. But you have your scope planning document that we talked about yesterday. So if they add to your scope, you have to make sure that any project change control items have been outlined. Sidebar. Okay. So this is a living document. Make sure that as the project manager, you keep it updated, okay, because you're going to continue to refer back to it. Now, if you happen to be using a project plan application, perhaps MS Project, when you identify all of your tasks within MS Project, you've outlined what your milestones are, there's a place within MS Project, a report that you can pull that will convert it into a work breakdown structure, okay? That org chart looking thing that I mentioned, all right? So if you're not doing this manually, if you don't have to build it, then don't waste your time. But if you do use MS Project, it can do this for you, and it'll look very organized. Now, I'm sure that there's other software applications out there that you can use to get to the same end result. I'm not advocating one over another. It just so happens that MS Project is what I use. All right. So your work breakdown structure has been completed. You were able to get your buy-in from your stakeholders. You have your document signed off on. Now, it would be very important, thank you very much for letting me know all of the tasks that need to be completed, but are there any dependencies? Are there any tasks that perhaps you can complete while you do something else? What's the sequence that all these activities have to be completed in? So you need to have a meeting either with those same individuals or ones that look just like them, and make sure that they're able to outline for you what the dependencies are. The reason for that is because it's very possible that you might be able to fast track your project. If there are items that don't have to be completed, finished to start, or once one task has been completed, then you get to start your next task. If they're not dependent like that, then perhaps you'll be able to do those items in parallel, and that might save you some time on your project. So definitely delve deeper into that. Now, I want to spend more time on the activity definition part and the activity sequencing part, but I think I've talked enough for today. So hopefully you've got from this that the work breakdown structure is important. It's your foundation. Make sure that you have one. If you have any questions tied to it, either get in contact with me or look it up. There are a lot of resources out there, a lot of options that actually delve deeper into the work breakdown structure than I have. I'm just sharing with you that it's important, and I really highly recommend that you use it. But don't let your research stop with me. Find out what works best for you. And if I can help you find other resources, let me know. I'd be glad to do it. Hope everyone has a great night, and I'll see you next time.